Hello, welcome back. I'm Miniature Mike, and this should be the second of another series I'm starting where I'm just taking a look at characters from Star Wars miniatures, movies, and expanded universe, and just comparing them to the other similar characters. For example, in this case, we're going to take a look at Count Dooku. In my last video, I took a look at Mace Windu's, the various ones, and just like Mace Windu, there's 4 different Mace Windu's available in Star Wars miniatures. And yeah, in some ways they're very similar to Mace Windu, both focusing heavy on just kind of melee combat, but with a little bit different spin on it. So with the first Mace Windu we get, we're going to jump into the Clone Strike one. And in general, one thing you can tell very quickly is he's very much a melee duelist. All of his powers very much kind of lend themselves in that direction, as opposed to Mace Windu, who can do a lot of damage and hit it back fast. He's really concerned. He doesn't necessarily do a lot of damage. Rather, he's very adept at blocking, guaranteeing himself hits, and being able to methodically kind of slice somebody down. So it has its pros and cons. So Count Dooku in general, we have 130, 21, 16, and then 20 damage. Special abilities, double attack, duelist, and melee. You'll see duelist on every single Dooku. It's kind of one of his trademarks, you could say. Makes him extremely good in melee situations. And then his force powers, he's limited to 5, and he's got block, precision, and Sith Lightning. So overall, taking a look at him, his hit points for 52s is slightly below average. A lot of melee people with in the 50 range and so forth tend to have PP around 140, sometimes 130. So it's pretty good, just kind of slightly below average. His raw defense is above average. His range survivability, I'd say, is a little below average, kind of poor. The only thing that kind of helps buoy that up is the fact that he has high base defense, which is very useful and good in being able to survive range. But he has, obviously, his specialty is with melee. So his melee survivability, it's good at 4.5. It's excellent. It's almost excellent, I should say. He has Duelist. That's fantastic. That raises him up to 25. And the best melee people tend to have, the best melee people will have 15 to 16 attack. And by doing that, you're basically giving yourself a 50-50 chance of being hit, assuming no extra powers are going on and so forth, which is fantastic considering the top tier stuff. A lot of melee people, they may be around 10 attack. So you're looking at maybe a 75% chance of blocking or avoiding the hit. Makes him very, very tough to take out in melee situations. But he only has double attack, but very high attack. And then the other things for force powers is he's got a lot of force. 5 is usually enough to kind of get the job done in one skirmish. But then he has block, which is, again, lends itself to being more survivable in the melee situation. And then precision as well. When he's attacking back, he can get that little extra damage. His attack, though, at plus 16 is extraordinarily high for someone rated this low. So for 52, those tend to be, 12. You may see 12, you may see 14, but having a 16 attack is one of the best in the game. I think it ties Qualsroma, Bane, some of those extremely expensive Sith Lords, and he gets it very cheap. So having that plus 16 is excellent. I believe we just took a look at Mace Windu may have it as well, but he's more expensive too. So you're getting the best attack possible for his rating. Attack, yep, great. His max damage is slightly above average, and that's kind of what holds him back. He's not going to just dish out tons of damage. However, he does have double, and then being able to have precision can kind of bump him up to like a 50 damage in that situation. So that's good enough. Special abilities, I'd say, are just in general average for 52. Double and melee is very standard, and then duelist is his specialty, which is very good. But a lot of other people in this range, they'll have other abilities or more abilities than he will. So I think they're very solid, and he's very suited to what he's got. Force powers, slightly above average. Lots of good options, lots of versatile options, which for me, I put him as a 2 for versatility. I think I think really he's more like a 2.5 or 3, just because he has a variety of things to do with the melee, and then he also has Sith Lightning, which is a solid, not my favorite one. I like Force Lightning better, obviously, for reasons where you can do area of effect damage. But Sith Lightning is decent and versatile in that situation. And his combos are 2. The problem with him is he Does have the good defense, which does pair well, but he's not able to necessarily do a whole lot of damage. He'll just be slowly kind of chipping away at his enemy deliberately. And so for that reason, I feel like it's kind of a lower on this list. So yeah, a very solid one. I think this Count Dooku is actually very, very decent. When you put all those numbers together, he comes out to be pretty good. So I think that's definitely an appropriate place for him. He's a pretty good character. Not amazing, not crazy, because he does have the good raw stats, but he is very slow at taking people out. But he can survive, which is good. And if you're interested in getting him, he's about $17 online. That's kind of what he traditionally goes for. The next Mace Windu is next time Mace Windu. Darth Tyrannus is going to be the one from Revenge of the Sith. So this guy, he's kind of a step down, but he does have one fun special ability going for him. So worse stats, basically one less in every department. The same special abilities as before, but now he has Dark Inspiration, which is cool because he can give an allied character with a Force rating, lightsaber duelist as well. And there's some interesting things you can do this with. I know people. A common one could be putting it with Darth Maul. Darth Maul tends to struggle with defense. That can help him out a lot with melee situations. And there's a lot of other fringe and even other separatist people with Force ratings that could benefit from using Dark Inspiration. So it is cool. And then his Force powers, like before, Sith Lightning blocks, and now he's missing precision, which is a bummer. But he is a little cheaper to kind of compensate for that, but I think he lost too much for how much cost he dropped. His hit points is average, just at 120. It's very average for this rating. Defense is average. His range survivability, I still kept it at a 2, even though we just lost 1 point in defense. I think that's good enough. His melee survivability, I'd say, is still really solid because he still maintains block and he still has lightsaber duelist, which gives him 24 defense, which is still pretty good. But it's not the 5 because, as you'll see, the next Dooku's, they're 5s for obvious reasons. Having more superior defense. His max damage, it's pretty poor. Since he has slightly lower attack, he's missing precision. So for other characters at this rating, he's not doing anything special, nothing extra. He's just going to give you 40 damage total. That's it. And that's, again, it's going to be very slow pickings to get through people. Special abilities, I think they're above average in this case because while you have the same ones as before, Dark Inspiration is a really interesting power. And I think it's one of the unique things that makes this Count Dooku maybe sometimes interesting to use, maybe sometimes playable. However, one of the issues is you still are paying 48 for a person who's, not my favorite, maybe slightly below average. I know he's a 2.9, so he's kind of in the fair range, but you're paying a lot to get Dark Inspiration, so you better make the combination really effective to make it pay off, and it better be a good matchup too. And then his Force powers, I'd say, are pretty average. A lot of people in this rating, he still has plenty of Force for a match. Block is great, and then Sith Lightning is decent for a mid-range attack or mid-range, damage doing. And then his combos, he has no combos really. It's just for his attacking or just kind of movement or kind of dynamic things he can do. It's very boring. It's just, double attack, that's it. His versatility still is a 2. It's not terrible. I think the reason I gave him a 2 is just because at least he has Sith Lightning. So he can kind of do a little bit in those situations, but it's not great. And then, yeah, like the other one, he's a melee duelist. They're all melee duelists. And again, he's very cheap. $7 on eBay. Kind of he goes for about that much. I'd say in general, he's the weakest one. So his overall is about 2.9, so slightly below average. So kind of in that fair category. I don't totally hate this one. I don't think I'd really ever use him very often, but it could be fun to devise cool squads to maximize Dark Inspiration if it makes sense. But even just know that if you are doing that, you are kind of spending a lot for a person who, while giving Dark Inspiration is nice, the rest of the character is, in my opinion, pretty underpowered. So something to consider. The next one is Darth Tyrannus Legacy of... That's funny. I'll get to that one later. Darth Tyrannus Legacy of the Dark Side. I see my card is slightly popping out of the screen here. This one's my favorite my favorite Count Dooku. Really, really, really good. And here's why. So he has similar stats as the last one. So they're kind of the lower end ones, but he has his defense back. Same special abilities as the original. So they're solid. They're very, they're definitely what you want. Very, very solid. And then his force powers are, to me, is what massively sets him apart. So he has Force 2, he has Renewal 1, and on top of all this, I'm going to start down here. He's got Block and Riposte and Master of the Force 2. So if you generate enough Force, you can block a lot of attacks. If you miss a block, you could choose to Riposte and hit the person back instead, which is really, really effective. It helps his maximum damage kind of improve a little bit, which I think is very, very handy. And then again, if you want to have, more versatility with him, he has an extremely powerful mid-range kind of damage output here with being able to replace his attacks on Force Lightning 4 to give 50 damage and cause them to potentially be activated. So kind of going over his hit points. Again, average defense is just a hair above average, just a hair. Range survivability, again, is 2, but his melee survivability, he is a 5 because he has the Duelist, and then he has Renewal 2, Riposte, and Block. He could block twice. He could redo a block. So it's off the charts in terms of being able to kind of deal with those types of things. Attack is good. It's one of the best attacks you can get in general at 15. His max damage is a little bit above average, and the reason I'm giving him that is because he has Riposte, which he has that and Master of the Force too. So if people attack him, he can dish it back, kind of like Mace Windu, and also Anakin, who I'm going to be doing in my next video, by the way. Which for him, instead of just kind of being a duelist, kind of blocking and then counterattacking on his turn, the fact that he can attack on the defense, he can block, he can attack back, it just gives him a lot more output. His special abilities above average, above average. I gave the original Count Dooku average score, so I guess that's not super consistent. Force powers, I'd say a 5 because I just think this is a fantastic slate. His combos are really above average, especially Master of the Force 2 mixed with Riposte and Block, meaning on offense, defense, he's going to be very dynamic. And then his versatility, definitely great due to having Force Lightning and Master of the Force 2. So super, super great Dooku. He is my favorite one personally, and that's reflected in a score. 3.8, so that's close to the great range. He's a great character. Really, really nice. And yeah, like I mentioned, my favorite one to use, and he's very cheap. He's only like about $11 on average on eBay, and there's plenty of sellers who are selling all of these characters, so it's very easy to find them. But that leads me to the last one, Count Dooku Sereno, who ironically he's the cheapest character to buy. He's also close to the great category as well. So he goes back to having the original high Dooku stats of 130, 21, 16, and 20. And his special abilities are very interesting because he has the traditional abilities, but instead of having block, he has Makashi style, which is basically built-in block plus a little bit more. Very, 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 very powerful. And then his force powers are, he's limited this time to Force 5. And he has Lightning 2, which is very versatile. I love Lightning 2 because it has that target and 2 adjacent characters to the target effect. And then he also has Riposte. So that's going to be a nice thing to have him hit back if Makashi style fails. So hit points, very average for a 51, kind of the 130 range average. Looking back, I think I should have given... I should have given the other guy average, the original Count Dooku. So his defense is above average. 21's great. His range survivability is decent due to having the high defense. Melee is 5 because Makashi style, having that built in as a special ability is very nice, so you don't have to use force points on it. And you could always reroll if you want to. So very effective. His attack is extremely high with the 16. Max damage is pretty solid. It's above average, especially since he has Riposte again. So he can attack. When people attack him back, he can hit them back. So in one full turn, he could potentially do, 60 damage, which is really solid. His force powers, his special abilities are fantastic. Being able to have the original stuff plus a very powerful one of Makashi, which obviously is block, but can also neutralize several other effective styles that you see in later sets. Really, really good. Although you'll notice it doesn't affect it's Suresu style. That's the one that's missed here. Force powers, solid, above average. He is limited, and Riposte is great, Force Lightning is great, but just be aware that that's something you'll have to be able to manage because it is a limited thing. And people tend to have some really crazy force, like Darth Tyrannus, Legacy of the Dark Side, or Legacy of the Force. Fantastic force powers, and these are very useful, so that's why above average. His combos, above average, being able to have Makashi to block, and then if it fails, you can hit back, so that's really cool how it goes together. And he's also quite, above average for versatility, being able to have Force Lightning 2. I really like that one. So again, for melee situations, these guys are all expert duelists, fantastic in that range. And he's also, even though he's 3.7, I'd say he's closer to the great range. I think he's really, really good. Really, really good. Just kind of that melee weapon to be able to block attacks and kind of pick apart an enemy. So fantastic there. I'm going to go to my kind of combined score for all these guys, and I will minimize myself in the process. So when you take a look at across, for overall, I won't delve too deep into it. The original Count Dooku is, he's a solid, good option. Darth Tyrannus, maybe avoid him, and then the other two are pretty good overall. What you're going to see is Count Dooku's, they do not excel with hit points. Their base defense doesn't excel. The range survivability, they are not meant for range at all, but they thrive really in two categories. They're excellent with melee survivability, and then they have excellent attack. So they'll be able to survive. They can use their high attack to guarantee hits on the enemy, even if it's not necessarily for a lot of damage. They can stay alive. They can kind of chip away at the enemy very effectively, which is, maybe not everyone's cup of tea, but it's definitely something he can do. Again, to reflect that, the max damage is low. The special abilities tend to be pretty solid, average solid abilities. But you're really just looking at melee, double, and duelist, and that's about it, which all lends itself back to the survivability in melee. However, Dooku Sereno, great special abilities. The force powers overall are very solid. That having a 3 is definitely very solid. Like, they're very usable force powers. However, Darth Tyrannus, insane force powers. I love his combination. I love his toolkit. And then in general, as you can see, when it comes to the versatility and also just kind of like the combination of things they can do, in this sense, combo is kind of the opposite of versatility, because versatility is like being able to do a lot of different things, and whereas combos is like you just kind of have dynamic powers that all flow together for powerful effects. The first two don't really have that, but the last two are definitely a lot more effective in that case. So overall, Count Dooku, he's a really cool character, really good lightsaber duelist. Unlike Mace Windu, who can just kind of blast you with damage, counterattack you to death, very high damage output. Count Dooku, he's not going to do that. He's more deliberate. I think they captured him really well in the movies, where he is very that lightsaber duelist. He's very elegant in his fighting, very deliberate, and I think they capture it very well by having that high melee survivability and the fact that he has a high attack, so he can land those blows. Overall, a lot of fun, really great character. And I think he pairs well with, depending on how you want to do it, he can pair well with very separatist squads. A lot of separatist squads go heavy droids. However, I think Darth Tyrannus is pretty solid overall. So anyways, with that, please subscribe, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on Count Dooku in general. Love to hear kind of what combinations you've heard with them, what your thoughts are on the character, if you think these ratings are right, or if you have any other additional comments about him that maybe I missed when I was talking about him. I'd love to hear from you. So anyways, with that, I will talk to you all next time.